Good morning. This is Larry Rybacki, the president of Sigma Corporation. As part of the Larry at Large series, we do interviews and podcasts. And today I am going to tell you a little story, kind of a self-deprecating story about my beginnings in the water industry and my beginnings of being an actual salesperson, and how how many mistakes that I made in the early going and what I learned from them. And one classic story is when I first started, I started with a company called NAPCO in May of 1977 in Northborough, Massachusetts. And my job, when I went to work for NAPCO, at the time, I was offered a job by Tenneco Corporation for about $16,000 a year, and I took a job at NAPCO for $10,000 a year because I was enamored by the title the president and owner gave me of National Sales Manager. Of course, when you're the only salesman, I had to look in the mirror in the morning and say, Larry, do this, Larry, do that. So actually, I had nobody that I was actually boss of, but I sort of liked the title as opposed to being a number at Tenneco. Well, when I started at NAPCO in the water industry, my job was to go around the country and promote a new product called the Uniflange. And the Uniflange was an adapter flange for plain end iron and steel pipe used in the water industry. It replaced threaded flanges or fabricated flanges. And so this unique product, invented by the owner, a guy named Chuck Roach, who gave me my start in the water industry, I'll forever be thankful for. Basically, I was on a plane. I was single, young, 22 years old, and got on a plane and went everywhere to promote this product. And the guy who had the job previous to me was horrendous. And it was not because I was any good. It was because this guy was so bad that no matter what I did would look good. So and being young and aggressive and eager, I went around the country promoting this Uniflange product to Waterworks distributors, who I found from the Yellow Pages. And back in those days, you'd go to a phone book. I would go to a town, open up the Yellow Pages, and circle the Waterworks distributors and go call on them. Well, in the beginning, I had tremendous success. And the two owners, a guy, Chuck Roach, who gave me my start, and the treasurer named Bill Chase, were equal partners in NAPCO. And I would call in on my week away with purchase orders. And it would usually be Friday where I'd call in and say, I got an order from Dana Kepner in Denver. I got an order from Sidner Supply in St. Louis. I got an order from Triple I in Dallas. Wherever I was, I usually call in and give them an order or two or three. And so I look like a hero because A, we were getting the product off the ground. B is that we needed the volume. NAPCO was kind of on a shoestring. So we were able to fund the company through this and other products. We also made grooved and flanged and ductile iron mechanical joint fittings. But anyway, to get this thing off the ground, the Uniflange was what we were kind of known for. Matter of fact, my license plate used to be UNI-FLG. Well, anyway, after 6 months or 7 months of success, I ran into my first roadblock in Ohio, in Western Ohio, to a company called Treaty Corporation, which later became part of the U Supply Group. Treaty was owned and run by a guy named Ray Lear, pretty dynamic president, and they had about 9 locations throughout Ohio and Indiana. And I went around with we had reps at the time, couldn't afford direct salesmen. And I went around, I spent a solid week calling on end users, like calling on cities and towns and contractors and engineers, making them aware of the Uniflange product, then going to see the local treaty distribution facility and promoting the Uniflange, educating them on the product. And I thought that this week could not have gone better. I started in Columbus, Ohio, ended in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and then drove back to meet Ray Lear at the Pine Club in Dayton, Ohio for dinner. And that's when I was convinced that I was going to get the biggest order that NAPCO ever had for Uniflame. So I was seeking a full truckload order, which was about $60,000. And that's what I had proposed. And when I met with Ray, and Ray said, sorry, Boy Wonder, we're not ready to do this yet. It's going to take some thinking, and I really want to analyze it a lot more and go back. And he procrastinated, and I wasn't used to that because I was used to instant success, and I got very frustrated. So on my way to the airport, I was very, very frustrated. I called the office, and Bill Chase said to me, okay, Boy Wonder, let's hear it. I know this is going to be a big one. And I made up an order. Made it up. Wrote down the quantities, the sizes, the whole thing. It was more than a truckload. It was almost 2 truckloads. Largest order in company history. And I did it on the date. In other words, if it was November 19th, I gave it 0419, and I just made up 2 letters, and attached that as the purchase order number and processed it. They were thrilled at NAPCO back in Northborough. I was in Ohio. I got on a plane, and I sweat like a pig because I was so nervous of what I had done, realizing that I made the whole thing up, that there really is no PO, and I was trying to figure out how to get my way out of this. And I spent all weekend, and I said to myself, well, the only thing I'm risking is the freight out, freight back, and I'm gonna be humbled and embarrassed, and who knows, this could be a real black eye for my career. So I got back to NAPCO, and of course when I walked in, there was like you are the best. I can't believe how good you are at this. I can't look at the order we got. Everybody was excited downstairs in the warehouse to process it, and I was up in my office holding my head saying, are you kidding me? This is a disaster. What is going to happen? And I waited for the phone to ring. Then all of a sudden, we shipped the order. 3 days after shipment, it arrived in Ohio. We shipped it to one location. The phone rang. The girl at the front desk said, Larry, it's Ray Lear on line 1. I could barely speak. I knew it was going to be a disaster. And I got on the phone, and I don't know what got into me, but I said, you know what? Once he started yelling at me, which he deserved to yell, I decided I was going to take the offensive. And I said, Mr. Lear, I said, I did this, this, and this to get this product in your branches. I called on the end users. I worked with your people. I did everything humanly possible, and you still procrastinated. I said, if all your customers were like you, I said, you wouldn't have any business because you wouldn't get off dead center and make a decision. And then he yelled again, and he said, okay, let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to pay for this. I'm not going to pay for this for 180 days, 6 months. I'm going to keep all these flanges. I'm going to disperse them. And if they don't sell at the end of the 6 months, not only will we not get paid, I'm sending them back to you and you're paying the freight both ways. He said, but right now I'll keep them because I have no choice. I said, okay. So I said, I agreed to it. I hung the phone up and said, oh my God, wait till they not pay. Then people are going to ask me why they're not paying. 10 days went by. We got a check for the full amount from Treaty. There was a mess up in their accounting department. They paid for it by accident when they weren't supposed to pay for it for 180 days. The money came in. Again, I was a hero. They're yelling it up and down. And the good news for me is that the product sold quickly, and Treaty became a huge customer, kept buying it, repeat orders everywhere, and it just worked like a charm. You'd think that's the end of the story. Well, it's not. Fast forward about 15 years. Chuck Roach, the president, decides to take a visit to Ford Meter Box in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And while he's there, he says, you know what? Maybe I'll go visit our best distributor on Uniflange. I'll go visit Treaty Corporation. Ray Lear heard that Chuck Roach was coming out to Fort Wayne. He met him. And so they're out having lunch, and Chuck, who doesn't have a lot to do with the customer base, he knows who they are, but he doesn't actually meet them too often one-on-one, is having lunch with Ray Lear and thanking him for the loyalty and everything else. And Ray Lear looks at Chuck Roach and says, can you believe how successful the two of us have been together despite the way it started? And Chuck Roach said, "What are you talking about?" And Ray Lear said, "That Polak, Rybacki, the kid that came in here, made up a PO, shipped it to me without authorization, and conned me into not only keeping it, and then my stupid accounting staff, by mistake, paid for it within 10 days, and the rest is history." Chuck was horrified. After the lunch, he got on the phone, gave me a call, and said, "Please tell me what I'm about to tell you isn't true." And I said, "Unfortunately, it is true, but the rest of the story is a positive one." So it all worked out great, but I learned my lesson that that is not the best way to go about doing business and creating long-term friendships, although Ray Lear and I remained great buddies until his passing. So it was a friendship that lasted 30 years. So sometimes they work out.